Hazardous waste labels are probably the simplest piece of paperwork that a lab worker will complete the entire time they are employed at the University of Florida. Unfortunately, this item is also the one that we notice the most frequent problems with when we are out on campus collecting hazardous waste. The best practice that you can have in your laboratory, which will help ensure compliance with the EPA's labeling regulations at all times, is to do one simple thing in your lab. Put your labels on your waste containers before the first drop of liquid waste or the very first pair of waste gloves goes into the container. If you do this one simple thing, you immediately meet the most basic requirement for hazardous waste which the EPA has, which simply states that every single container of hazardous waste must be conspicuously marked with the specific words hazardous waste. The other thing that this action accomplishes is that you now have this nice convenient area for people to simply update the list of constituents whenever they make an addition to the container. If, for example, today, let's say you are going to start this new waste collection container, and you have a combination of acetone and hydrochloric acid to dispose of. You dispose of your solution into this empty but already labeled waste container, close the container, and then add acetone and hydrochloric acid to the label. Now, if an hour and a half later, someone else comes to the satellite accumulation area and they have a beaker full of, say, water, methanol, and sulfuric acid, they may simply add this compatible mixture to your container and then update the list of constituents to include these new additions. Once the bottle is completely full, someone knowledgeable about the waste should go back and identify the approximate percentage for each of these constituents. While these approximations don't have to be precisely exact, we do ask that you estimate each of these percentages. The same thing can be done for your solid waste. When adding the first pair of waste gloves into the container, you may simply label your container with solid waste contaminated with, and just give us a short list of the chemicals you most frequently are utilizing in your laboratory. A few finer points that we do ask when labeling your waste. Please make sure that you avoid using chemical abbreviations, formulas, or obscure molecular diagrams to describe your waste, as this makes it very difficult for us to positively identify what the materials are that you are giving us. Please ensure that you tell us everything that is in the bottle, including an approximate percentage of water, if any is present. For example, it is not enough to simply tell us 5% nitric acid and then hope that we correctly assume that the other 95% is simply water. If it is simply water, please make sure to label it that way, which will avoid any confusion. Finally, please make sure that you complete the bottom section of each hazardous waste label, which is the contact section. This includes the building and room number associated with your laboratory, along with your professor or principal investigator's name. Errors do occasionally occur when people label their hazardous waste. If you give us something that doesn't seem to match what you've listed on your label, this section will enable us to contact your lab, describe the contents of the container to you, and hopefully get the waste correctly identified.